All right, this is the second Fabric Call special edition, starring Lynn and Justin. This is a continuation of a presentation Lynn gave highlighting a potential challenge with the look ahead and how this impacts pre-comps post Pectra. And so they've been working hard to get something out the door. So with that, turn it over to Justin and Lynn to give some context and talk through their proposal.
Okay. Yeah, thanks you for the intro and thanks for setting this up. Yeah, so for some context, like last Wednesday, we made a presentation of some issues that pre-confirmation protocols will have with the current like look-ahead design that Ethereum has. And basically over the weekend, like we came up with this relatively simple EIP that we're aiming to be introduced in Fusaka. And I just wanted to give you like intro and information about this. Okay. Yes, so yeah, this is about EIP 7917. This is called Deterministic Proposer Look Ahead. This is by me, Lynn Oshitani from Nethermind, in joint effort with Justin Drake from Ethereum Foundation. So in this talk, I will go over the pre-confirmation and look ahead, like how they relate. I will go over problems with having a non-deterministic proposer look ahead, and go over why deterministic look ahead is good in general, not only for pre-confirmations. And I'll introduce the EIP and go through some conclusions. And please feel free to interrupt and ask any questions anytime. So pre-confirmations and the look ahead. So why do pre-confirmations need to look ahead? So in pre-confirmations, the next opted-in proposer will be the pre-confer for the given slot. So let's say that here, like you have a bunch of proposers in the look ahead. And the ones that are filled in with red, these are the opted-in pre-confers. So they're the opted-in proposers, or what's called pre-confers. And the ones with the dashes, these are non-pre-confer proposers. And let's say that you're in slot 3. In slot 3, this is a non-pre-confer proposer. And so is in slot 4 and slot 5. What happens here is that slot 6, which is an opted-in proposer, the pre-confer, like this guy will be providing pre-confirmations for 3, 4, 5. But it's crucial for a pre-confirmation protocol to work to know who the next opted-in proposer is in the look-ahead. So the look-ahead visibility is crucial. So this works fine while the next pre-confer is in the current epoch look-ahead. However, at epoch boundaries, the problem arises, and we cannot know the next pre-confer deterministically. So at the epoch boundary towards the end, let's say that there is no more pre-confers in the look-ahead. At this point, you have to go into the next epoch's look-ahead to know who the next opted-in proposer is. So you have to have visibility against this part and in a reliable way. So why is this a problem? Like if you look at the ETH book, it says ETH2 book, it says that like we know the seed of the look-ahead of current and next epoch, right? It said that the seed of the current epoch is based on the round output of epoch min seed look ahead. So this is a parameter in the protocol plus 1 ago with min seed look ahead set to 1, which is what's set in current mainnet. The effect is that we know the seed of the current epoch and the next epoch. So it seems like you can know the next epoch's look ahead. However, like look-aheads are not calculated just by the roundout. It's calculated by the roundout and the effective balance of validators. And the thing is, the effective balance of validators can change during the current epoch in ways that alter the next epoch's look ahead. So this can be due to deposits, withdrawals, rewards, slashing, and consolidations. So in other words, like the roundout and effective balance used to calculate the look ahead do not align. So here, like to calculate this look ahead, like the roundout part, it's available here. So like with a roundout here, you can like calculate the input is already there. But the effective balance part, this part, it's only available until here because you don't know how the effective balance will change during this epoch. And for most cases, you can kind of guess, right? Because like in most cases, the effective balance will not change. And in current like Ethereum, like the only case that to think about is slashing, right? So like in most cases, there is no slashing, the effective balance will not change. And so you can kind of reliably be able to guess what the effective balance will be. So you can like guess what the calculated look ahead will be here at this point. But like there is still a possibility that effective balance can change. And this unpredictability is worsened due to increase of effective balance. This is in EIP 7251, as effective balance of active validators can now grow beyond 32 ETH. So before what we had is that like if you had like 32.9999 ETH here, like you're one of the proposals here and you have that's what you have. And let's say that you do attestation and then you go to 33 ETH. Before max EP increase, like your effective balance was capped at 32. So like there was no increase. There was no change in the effective balance. However, after this effective balance increase, you can change. There's like a lot more ways that the effective balance can change during this epoch now, like with this max EP change, which means that the reliability or the predictability of this epoch's look ahead is now like much more worsened, like because there's just more ways that effective balance can change here. Okay, so this is the issue with pre-confirmations, like, and why having a reliable look ahead is important and how like the current unpredictability is a problem. But I would also argue that it's not just about pre-confirmations, like, and like having an unpredictable look ahead, it has other problems, I would argue. So one is that like the implementation complexity increases. If you look at current consensus client implementations, it enables fetching the next epoch look ahead proposer, like to fetch the proposer duties. And how they do this is that they simulate the next epoch by executing a bunch of empty blocks. And some also cache these results. However, this like simulation result, it's not like 100% reliable. This is because effective balance changes cannot truly be simulated. You have no idea what's going to happen in like this epoch at this point. So you can give a estimated like simulation, but you can't really be sure. So like this has to be considered in all cases. For example, if you are caching these results, you have to consider that the cached results are now like invalidated because of the effective balance changes. So there's just like a lot more things to think about. Furthermore, like an undeterministic look ahead, it also complicates the security analysis. So in the current design, like we must consider what Justin called the effective balance, like grinding attack, where like malicious validators adjust their effective balance to manipulate the next epoch look ahead for gain. So like in this duration, knowing the Randall, they can like potentially adjust their effective balance in like this duration to like have some gain in this look ahead. Now we looked into this and actually like no concrete attacks has been found. It seems to be prevented, but it's hard to rule out entirely. And furthermore, like any future protocol upgrades must ensure that this attack vector remains infeasible. So this is like another environment that you must keep in the whole protocol at all times in all upgrades. There's just like more things to think about. Okay, so like now that we've gone through the problem, I'll go through the proposed EIP, which is EIP 7917, deterministic proposer look ahead. Okay, what this EIP does is that like this is what we have right now, right? Like the Randall is from here, the effective balance of here, there's a misalignment, and there's this like room for effective balance change here. So what we get with this EIP is that like you shift the effective balance, like no longer get it from here, but you get it from here. So at this point, at this epoch boundary, now you can like deterministically calculate the look ahead of the next epoch. Okay, so like this is what we get, and how do we get it? The first thing that we do is that we introduce a new proposer lookahead field in the beacon state. So this is a beacon state. This is like defined in the Python in the specs. And it has like slot number, it has the list of validators and so on and so forth. We add a new field called proposer lookahead, which is a list of validator index. So these are the proposer's validator index. And the length is min seed lookahead plus 1 times slot per epoch. So right now, this part will be 2. So we have 2 slot epochs worth of visibility. And yeah. So, and furthermore, at the start of how do we like keep track of the proposer lookahead? At the start of each epoch, the proposer lookahead is updated by shifting the previous epoch's lookahead and appending the new one at the end. So before the epoch boundary, what you have is, let's say, the state.proposer lookahead is this. After the epoch boundary, what you do is you shift the next like epoch's proposers all the way to the front, and then you calculate the latter half, the next epoch's proposers, and put it in the latter half of the list. And this is basically it. So yeah, this is like the whole change basically. And this like approach has other benefits. And one thing is that the look ahead now becomes accessible via the EVM, via the insides of EVM, via the beacon root and a simple Merkle proof. So this highly simplifies the implementation of on-chain components for base pre-confirmation protocols. And personally, I would argue like this alone would be a good reason to include this like EIP. Like it simplifies everything that much. But as you've seen, like there's a lot more other like benefits to this. Okay, conclusion. So the EIP 7917, it's a very simple change. Like it can be explained with a slide or two, as I just did right now. And if you look at the spec changes, it's like 22 lines of changes, ignoring the comments. And it has like large benefits, such as enabling a robust and simple pre-confirmation protocols. And it simplifies the proposer scheduling protocol and the consensus itself, which simplifies the security analysis and potentially the code. And I would argue that it just feels much more natural. Like it seems weird that we have like the roundel from one epoch bound, like, and then the effective bound from another, and these two do not match. Like I just feel like more natural to be like from the same slot. Okay, so call for action. We are aiming for inclusion in the next Fusaka fork. And so like to consensus layer devs, my question would be any concerns with this change? I have the spec changes like linked here, like so, but even without that, like any high level concerns that you have. Also, any concerns with inclusion in Fusaka? I know like there's a lot other like high priority things that's being worked on, and like what do you think about the scheduling here? And how can we make it help making this possible? Like will be willing to help in any way, like even help in the implementations or make PRs in some cases too. And yeah, please also like look at the East Magicians post for the 7917 if you have any comments. And also to pre-confirmation protocol, like please voice your support for this effort. Like it's very important to the industry. And right now, like the whole pre-confirmation space, it's, I would say, turned into an industry and it's beneficial and pretty crucial for everyone. So yes, please like help us get this through. Yes, that's all from me. Any questions or comments or yeah, or
I
Yeah,
see a
so
oh,
oh,
I was just
uh
gonna say I see a question in the chat, but Jason can ask his too. So
okay,
go ahead.
I'll do a comment first, but I guess last call you proposed this pretty elegant design, which was like branch or I guess branching inboxes where anyone can post to the inbox and you can only really deterministically prove like one slot after the fact about who the canonical sequencer should be. And I feel like this is a really, I think it leads to a very pragmatic approach. The downside with the branching inbox was real-time settlement wasn't really possible. But maybe if we use this EIP, if we don't have real-time proving by Fusaka, we can kind of use both of these approaches, like start with branching inboxes because it's simple and elegant, accept this trade-off that we can't do real-time settlement, but then by the time we have this EIP, it'll just make it easier because we can prove at the time of the blob proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that approach, well, it might work and it might work as like an interim solution. But I would say that, okay, but I guess you're like agreeing too, but like this EIP is still needed because it's not just about like the on-chain component, it's all about the off-chain or like anyone in the pre-confirmation protocol, whether they can know who the next proposer is, like reliably getting that, you will need this EIP. And yeah, as a midterm solution, that would be one approach. Another approach that I mentioned there is like having what I called like a bridge pre-confer where like the next pre-confer in the next like epoch, you could just assign it some random person and go with it. But yeah, both of them I would say is not 100% ideal, but yes, like in the meantime, it's potential like mitigations.
Nice. Then maybe you touch on SSLE. I know there were some comments on this in the PR too, but it might be good to. Someone said would shut the door of adopting SSLE in the future. I think that's Lodestar.
Okay. Yes. So yeah, I would say that like SSLE and this specific change of like adding the proposer look ahead in the beacon state, I would say that it doesn't like block or it doesn't like completely close the doors to SSLE. And yeah, for context, like SSLE is single secret leader election. So it's like you don't make it public who the proposer is. Only the proposer knows, so that like they don't be DDoS attack and all that. So the answer to that is whether this blocks that is that I would say that it won't block it because first, from what I heard, like the SSLE constructions that we have right now, it still does have a proposer look ahead. It's just an encrypted proposer look ahead. So you can still reuse the state and like yield and like put the encrypted validator indexes, for example. Or if you don't even have encrypted proposer look ahead, you can just keep it empty. But it won't be blocking. That's my point here. And yeah, and I also heard that like SSLE is right now not super prioritized. And yeah, maybe Justin, you can give some context about that, like long-term vision.
Sure. I mean, for the next few years on the beacon chain, I think it has been severely deprioritized because there's just more important things like increasing the number of blobs and various other things. In the long term, it's also been deprioritized for, I guess, a couple of reasons. The first one is that we don't know of a post-quantum version of SSLE. And so in the context of the beam chain, which tries to be post-quantum secure, it maybe doesn't make as much sense. But the other observation is that once you have APS, attested proposer separation, there isn't much of a strong financial incentive to go DOS the consensus proposers. And the execution proposers are assumed to be sophisticated, so they can defend themselves from DOS attacks with fancy firewalls and things like that. So the main attack vector for rational actors that we have today is, I'm going to figure out the IP address of a home validator, and I'm going to DDoS them so that they miss their slot, and I'm going to steal the MEV that they would have gotten in their slot because I'm for example the proposer in the next slot. So this kind of attack just goes away with APS. So the value of SSLE goes down. But again, as I said, like the constructions that we know of right now are you know, relatively complex and not post-quantum secure.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Another question in the chat. Are there strong arguments against pushing the look ahead out even further? Say another epoch?
I'm actually not sure. I don't know the context of why right now it was set to like 2. Maybe Justin, do you know?
Yeah, so in general, when there is a look ahead, like the things that we were worried about, I think when we designed the beacon chain were collusion attacks where you knew the proposer schedule, and so you can go ahead and communicate with those people and somehow get a string of k consecutive proposers to all act in a certain way to do various attacks. I guess the counter argument to that is that really we should be assuming that collusion attacks are instantaneous. Like the communication overhead should be, we should assume that attackers are able to bring down the communication overhead down to 0 with pre-funded smart contracts that make these credible commitments ahead of time and things like that. And then the other thing we were, in general with having a look ahead is this idea that you can be DOSed, which is the reason for going down the SSLE route. But again, like if you want to DOS someone, it doesn't take a long time to figure out their IP address. What you can do even is you can figure out everyone's IP address ahead of time, because it's been done already. We know that the peer-to-peer network has privacy problems, and various people have already found the IP addresses of pretty much every validator. And so, yeah, this increasing the look ahead shouldn't make things worse from a denial of service standpoint. I guess the reason for not changing the look ahead is that it makes the EIP simpler and more likely to go through in Fusaka. But in general, I think it would be nice to have a longer look ahead because it means that the amount of buy-in that we need from the validators in the context of pre-confirmations goes down quite dramatically. So it's like 20% squared, which is 4%. Instead of the current 20%. And maybe it opens up the door for other forms of pre-confirmations, maybe like a futures market on block space so that you can hedge your base fees. I mean, there's even like extreme versions where you have a look ahead of 1 day or 1 week or 1 month, and then you can have these long dated futures markets.
Nice. There was a related question. I don't know if Justin just answered that though. What's the proportion of opt-in sequencers do we need to have one in the next epoch with high probability? Is this related for pre-comps for the sequencing?
Yeah, so if you only have like 1 epoch of guaranteed look ahead, then it's about 20%. And if you have 2 epochs, then it compounds on each other. So it's 20% times 20%, which is about 4%.
I mean, Justin, it's Max. It sounds like you made a good argument for at least examining the possibility of putting this in as an optional part of the EIP, and if it isn't controversial, then someone doesn't come up with a very good reason not to do it. It would surely make, as you said, all the protocols much, I guess, much easier to get started.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, maybe what could be done is that there's a second EIP that could be written, and because it's only changing one constant, it's a one character change. Maybe it's something that we could write later today, because I think the deadline is for submitting EIPs for consideration for Fusaka is the all-call devs. So yeah, that's a possibility.
I see Connor, have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in on the on the point from Justin that we think it's equal, or never mind. We think it's equally important that you know that there isn't any pre-confirmer in the next 32 slots. And just to confirm, it's 32 is the minimum from now on, right? With this new EIP, 32 slots
yes.
ahead.
Yes, like towards the end of this epoch, yeah, you'll have one epoch worth of look ahead.
Yeah. So if you know that someone's not going to be there in 32 slots, you can then safely attribute you can give the default pre-confirmer, if such one exists, the rights to safely pre-confirm for 16 slots, and then once you know the next look ahead, jump in with like a secure pre-confirmer that's like in the elected set of proposers.
Yes. And I think what would happen is like, even if, for example, at this point, you don't know who the next pre-confer is, like as soon as you cross the epoch boundary, you have another set of like look ahead that's added. And at that point, you might have someone there, and the fallback pre-confer won't have to pre-conf for so long. Yeah.
I guess this goes back to the simplicity argument. Right? A big advantage of the CIP is that it simplifies getting the look ahead exposed to the application layer. And if we don't need all of this fallback infrastructure, that's a further simplification.
Yes. All these fallback solutions, they're not ideal because like the pre-confer will be a non-proposer. And a lot of these pre-confirmation protocols, you provide a pre-confirmation, then you have to actually include it in the L1. And if you're not a proposer, it just complicates a lot of things. You have to go through a mempool, or you have to be a builder. And yeah, so having a proposer as a pre-confer and being able to know that ahead of time is very important for having a good, simple pre-confirmation protocol.
Yeah, and one of the questions in the chat was about how much we expect MaxEB to change. And I know we have Seb from Kilmon. I don't know if he's willing to publicly share kind of Kilm's perspective on how they plan to aggregate or the timing, and if you've talked to other validators, kind of like what the sentiment is.
Yeah, the question was more like today on the network, there is about 0.5% of blocks that are missed. And so statistically, even if you know that like there is a pre-confirmer that is in the next 32 slots, you have to take into account the fact that it may miss the slot. And so my question is more like to try to understand like what's the likelihood that the EB changes in the current epoch, like to kind of like see the difference like compared to the current network conditions, because maybe we are trying to solve something that is still a problem even if we know the look ahead.
So one consideration is that the majority of the missed slots are due to operator error. Like one error is that the operator just lost their private keys and they're permanently offline. Another set of errors is that they're just offline for some reason, like there's some scheduled maintenance or something like that. And then yet another reason for missing a slot is that you're playing very aggressive timing games, and you're basically taking a risk. potentially increasing your MEV by a few percent, but you also risk like outright just missing the slot. In the context of pre-confirmations, none of these things are relevant. So the first two, where you're just permanently offline, and when you have scheduled maintenance, are not relevant because like what the pre-confer does is that they make a promise in a few seconds before their slot. So if they know that they're planning to be online in the next few seconds, then that's not really a problem for them. And then when it comes to playing timing games, well, they're going to be heavily disincentivized to play very aggressive timing games, because if they do miss their slot, in addition to losing the MEV in that slot, they also get penalized because it's a liveness fault, and they might lose, for example, one ETH of collateral. Now, to answer your question around what is the expected disturbance to the proposer look ahead in the context of MaxiV, the answer seems to be that it's very minimal, even in a non-adversarial setting. So just organically, if balances go up and down, and the deposits and consolidation happen organically, it should be very, very low. We're talking about something like 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 or maybe 1 in a million. So I don't know what the exact order of magnitude is, but intuitively it feels like it's very, very minimal. Like you can only manipulate the look ahead in very, very edge casey situations, which shouldn't happen very often. And like part of the reason is that the way that the proposer schedule is done is in 2 phases. So there's like phase 1, which is the most important phase, where you select all of the active proposers, regardless of the effective balance, and then you order them again without taking into account the effective balance. And then you have a process of sampling the top of this ordered list based on the effective balance. So it's kind of your probability of being selected is pro rata to your effective balance. And there, the changes in effective balance will only have an effect in very, very rare circumstances. So first of all, you need to be at the very top of the list, but also you need the sampling to be just at the edge case between being selected and not selected. So most of the time, even if your effective balance does change, it's not going to affect the proposal look ahead.
Yeah, to add to that, like the effective balance change, yes, like happening during this epoch, it might be very rare, like Justin mentioned. But another thing to consider here is like very rare and having like not happening. There's like a very, very large like difference there. Well, it depends on the pre-confirmation protocol itself. But for example, like in some designs, we have a design where, because like on chain right now, you don't have visibility against a look ahead. But still on chain, you do need like visibility against a look ahead. For example, if you're L2 pre-confirmation protocol, like the L2 inbox contract will need to know who's allowed to post to me, right? And to that to know, like the inbox has to be aware of the next look ahead. And one of the designs there is like you have someone optimistically post the next look ahead, so to make it visible in the EVM, and like later on see whether it was right. And for example, in such constructs, like if sometimes the next epoch look ahead can change, it's completely broken because like they can be slashed for reasons in which are completely out of their control. And another thing that might happen is like you are a pre-confer in a certain slot in the next epoch's look ahead, and you do start like pre-confing. It turns out that you're not the pre-conf, like the proposer in the slot, but you still like gave a bunch of pre-confirmations, and that puts you potentially like the design depending on the pre-confirmation design, but puts you in an awkward situation where you don't control a slot, but you still have to like properly provide, like includes these pre-conf transactions in the L1. So even if it's an edge case, like if the edge case is kind of potentially introduces like wrongful slashing, then we do want to prevent it.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yeah, if consensus CL devs are here, like I would want to, a question from my side would be like, yeah, would you first like agree that it's a simple change and a reasonable change? Or like any, yeah, concerns that you would have that we might be missing?
From the first look of this, it looks pretty easy to implement.
Nice. Go in chat. Okay, nice. Yes. Yeah, that was my impression. And yeah, so happy to hear that.
Just for the recording, in the chat we have Gadgen there who commented that it looks fine to him as well.
Nice, nice.
I understand like the complexity of having the look ahead further away, but I feel that having free epoch look ahead would be beneficial for like to reduce, as you mentioned, just in the number of required sequencers that opt in. So in case like it's not that complicated, I think it adds value.
Are you talking about increasing the min seed, min, what was it? Min look ahead seed or?
Yes, like to have a look ahead that is further away.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense too. But yeah, I would say that I would keep it separate from this EIP itself, as Justin also mentioned. Yeah, I think it makes sense. And yeah, I heard that in Fusaka, like there's a lot of focus on pure DAS, and like I guess that's the biggest one. Do you think that would potentially like kind of make it hard to get this included, even though the simplicity? Question to the CL devs.
I could probably just add my 2 cents here, but from what I understand right now, they're not taking any additional EIPs for Fusaka. The idea is really to try to get a Fusaka DevNet up right now. So until we have more information about how that's going and whether or not we can get a properly happy case of pure DAS with without all super nodes and stuff like this, like we have a couple milestones we need to hit. I mean, we even tried to include stable containers and we're even having a hard time trying to get that in. So just to give you an idea, set some expectations here about the reality of Fusaka right now.
I see. So, okay, I see. So the focus on pure DAS, and if that, depending on how that DevNet actually goes, like how much occupied Fusaka will be, it might change.
Yeah, I mean, like even in the PR here, like Alex Stokes says to target, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, Hulu, but just from the last ACD, trying to get anything included at this point is difficult till we know more about the status of Pure DAS in the next few months.
I see. Do you think it will help if like we or like external contributors like, try to do the PRs and make it as simple as possible, the client devs? Or is it not concerned about the coding? It's more about testing and just having more features.
I think it's really hard to say because like even for stable containers as an example, we've already have that included in Lodestar. We've even done a DevNet with it, and even that has been tough to include. So yeah, just trying to set some realistic expectation. I don't know, like we can definitely do our best to try to, potentially even set up a DevNet or something with this included just to demonstrate and already have the code in. But yeah, there's no guarantees at this point yet about Fusaka.
I see, I see. I see. Yeah, thanks for the information. That's good to know.
Just at a meta level, exactly 1 week ago in the previous call, there were some alarm bells that that went through my head, and as Lynn said, this was basically a job that happened over the weekend, and I mean Lynn has done an absolutely amazing job preparing the diff to the consensus layer spec, the EIP. We even have some spec tests, and we managed to coordinate the EIP being proposed for Fusaka, and we have an EIP number, thanks to Ganjin there who helped out. All of this to say that the fact that we were able to move so fast is partly also a reflection of the fact that it is an extremely simple change.
Yes, yes, completely agree. Like I think it would be impossible for me to just do it in a few days while I have no experience in this if it wasn't this simple. So yeah, change-wise, it is very simple.
And overall, like I'm very happy that this like mini crisis did happen last week, because not only do we have mitigations and we've explored a bit more thoroughly the fallback design space, but we now have potential line of sight to massively simplifying how to consume the look ahead, and also very significantly reducing the amount of opted-in validators to get this off the ground.
Yes, yes, like the whole making the look ahead accessible in the EVM. I was thinking like that itself would be worthy of an EIP. Like I was thinking that's needed in the future. And in this EIP, the nice thing is that you get many birds in a single stone. You get a more stable look ahead, which is good for preconfs, but non-preconfs too. And having the look ahead in the beacon state being accessible through the EVM, through the beacon route, that also simplified a lot of things. So it's a huge, I think, yeah, you gain a lot with a relatively small change. Yeah, any more questions or comments? We've been following the chat.
I guess maybe not questions, Lynn, but
Mhm.
you post on this. What's most helpful for the pre-comp teams, like in I guess Fabric to people that have capacity to help you write tests? Like what else is needed from a practical perspective of people that are supportive on this?
Yeah, I think just general like voicing support, like saying that pre-comps need this in just show that like we as an industry need this. I think that would be very helpful. Technically, I'm actually I'm totally not sure like technically what's needed. Like a lot of right now, I think just adding more spec tests and also doing the client implementations, which is a pretty high bar, but would need help from the consensus layer teams. But yeah, just like general support, I would say, like I'm pushing this forward. I think a lot of this is not just about the technical stuff, it's about the social layer pushing for it. And yeah, from my side, I think the things that I want to do is, add more tests. I think that's very needed and very needed for people to be comfortable with it. Like so far, there haven't been design-wise concerns around it. So I think right now it's more about having it reliable as possible. And yeah, I think I'll try to attend one of those consensus core dev calls and try to make an argument for the inclusion and see, also have a better understanding of where Fusaka is. And for that, yes, all you guys support will also be needed because this is all new to me.
Awesome. Anything else?
Yeah, from my side, it's okay.
Great. We'll have another Fabric call next week. Probably a different subject, maybe an update on this, but some other items that we have to check off for base sequencing. So look out for the poll and invite. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.